Okay, I've already covered in some of the other videos, the concept of what stacks are and what is meant by front end versus rear end, etc. In websites and web technology in general. I wanted to touch on some miscellaneous things in this video, related to everything I've discussed in the other, the whole series so far. Yeah, these are like miscellaneous technologies here. Because the point of these videos, I'm just trying to record all the stuff before I forget it all, because I've already started forgetting a bunch of it. So, but I'm just trying to survey all this web technology to know, get some idea what all this stuff is. You got things like AWS, Amazon Web Services, which certainly is a way of like a hosting, on Amazon's technology, on their websites and so forth. It's supposed to be like a serverless thing. I don't really know much about it, but I know it's like an alternative to a stack, I believe. But it's all based on Amazon, so I guess whatever that entails. But again, I still don't know that much about it, but I know it's something you'll see, AWS. I had a better concept like a week ago what it was, but again, I'm already starting to forget things. That's why I'm making this video. I wish I could have done this a week ago. Now this Google Flutter is something that was kind of curious. It's kind of a new thing. It's a it says a UI toolkit for smart devices. Kind of similar to jQuery, but it's like something new that Amazon has out, and it's supposed to be, but it is strictly about user interface, but it's supposed to be like cross-platform and native speed. So it's supposed to be really fast controls or something. So it's pretty extensive stuff on it. If you look for Google Flutter, let's do a Google search on it. It's supposedly something pretty new. Now JSP, Java Server Pages, this is something about Java. So and how Java, because Java still plays a relatively small role in the internet. Like I said, it's mostly in the front end about JavaScript, and in the rear end about either Node.js or PHP with Apache Server. So but like I say down here, Java plus Spring, etc. is an alternative stack. So I mean, some people do use it, and there's apparently certain advantages to it, and getting into like RMI, which is a Java thing for remote, I want to call it remote management interface, but it's remote method invocation. So it's a way of spreading objects around, apparently, as opposed to RESTful or whatever. But which I covered in one of the other videos. In this series, on my, the YouTube playlist. So if you go look on my site, everything's really well organized on my channel. So if you want to see these other videos I'm talking about, just go look for, www. I haven't figured out what I'm going to call it yet, but it'll be something with respect to the internet, probably something like overview of internet technology or something less verbose than that. But in any event, this Google Flutter is kind of interesting. And Spring, like I said, is part of Java, and let's see, it's a framework supposedly. Again, I don't know much about it because I'm about to get back into Java. That's one of the reasons I went and studied all this, because I was interested to see if I could interface Java to databases, but I didn't know about how these damn databases worked, and one thing led to another. That led me to servers, which led me to the front end of the internet and how to interact with it. So but again, I'm going to get back into Java and try to figure out how to interface that to databases with what I now know. So again, I'll probably figure a little more about this out, but again, my whole reason for studying Java is so that I can get into smartphones, so I can understand Android. So because Android's based on Java 6 basically, but Google's own version, from there they forked off and pissed the Oracle guys off, who now own Java. But anyway, Google did their own version of that. So again, Android is still basically based on a version of Java. So, but again, it helps to learn Java so that you'll understand the concepts of, that are nuts and bolts concepts, if you go develop smartphones. And my reason for actually doing this, because there are other ways you can go. I mean, you don't, that's what I was talking about in another video, and even Node.js itself, you can actually build, since it acts like a web server, okay, you can actually build apps, web apps around it. In other words, things that aren't really web pages, but they are web pages, but you don't know it. They actually look like an application on like a smartphone. So that's one way of doing it, and again, the end user would be none the wiser because it would still just be dealing with the same traditional HTML, CSS / JavaScript front end, but with Node.js in the background, acting like a web server. So I mean, you get more power that way, and creating dynamic web pages which become an actual app. So that's an alternative way of writing a smartphone application. And then you can also do like React supposedly has a React Native, which and there is a thing called Proton too, which is supposed to be based on React or React-like, but you can actually write desktop applications with it as well. But again, React and some of those things are complicated. I don't know much about it. I just really didn't have time to really get into it, beyond just very superficially, how React and Angular work, and the only thing I don't like about these two things is that you got to install like 300 fucking plus megabytes even for a very simple Hello World application if you want to develop an Angular or a React application. So even just for the simplest Hello World program, you're going to use up 300 megabytes or better, because it actually has to install Angular or React all into your project file. You can't install it globally like you can with Node.js and some of this stuff. It's just the most retarded thing I've ever heard of. I mean, I like to have little snippets of code I can come back and modify, but because I know once you're done with the site, you like quote unquote publish it or whatever, and then you can delete all that stuff and clean it all out. But then again, well, okay, how do you come back if you need to modify it later? How does that work? But anyway, the whole thing kind of leaves a bad taste in my mouth. So, and there are other alternatives. So I don't know. I haven't settled on that whole thing yet. But my point is it wouldn't take very many applications to fill up a fucking hard drive. If you actually, especially if you're in like, the business of, having clients or something, and juggling 100 different customers, websites, because that's the business you're in. If you did that, that would kind of suck. You better have a big hard drive. But anyway, that's something that left a bad taste in my mouth. That's why I didn't get into it, because I've got very limited hard drive space available on all my computers, including this one. This computer's actually got, I don't know, a good 3 terabytes on it or more, but most of it's filled up with videos and stuff like that. So, and I don't have a backup for it. But at any rate, let's see, moving on though, like I said, this JSP is, Java servlets, and again, I haven't had a chance to look into it. I'm going to be probably looking into it once I get back into Java here in a few days. But right now I still don't know exactly what they are. They're Java server pages, but again, it's all based on their servlet concept, I think. So, which I don't really know what that is, but I think it's an alternative model for, as opposed to the lamp stack and the mean stack. But let's see, Spring, all I got is that it's a Java framework right now. Bootstrap we kind of covered in a previous video, because I told you about Java T-Point and some of these other, sites you can go to learn, HTML or what have you. And Angular material. Now that's something that really makes me curious about Angular itself, is because if you go to look up, Angular's website, they actually have this thing called materials, which, it's about themes and stuff. Because I'm still really confused because I got the impression that Angular was not about, style sheets or, or website templates or anything like that. I didn't think it was like WordPress, but I start to wonder by looking at the Angular material thing because, it's pretty bizarre what they do because it's really about styles or themes or something. So, again, I didn't have a chance to figure out how all that crap works, but it's sort of similar to, like I said, Bootstrap, because there are a lot of different controls and stuff on it. But again, there's so much ground I had to cover and so little time to do it, because I did all this in just a few weeks, including starting from scratch, learning HTML and PHP and JavaScript and stuff that I had no concept of a month ago. But they were just buzzwords, but I finally, after all these years, got around to actually trying to figure out basically at least what all this shit is. So, and jQuery, by the way, I just have a mobile version of it, so I got the UI thing as well as just plain old jQuery. But again, jQuery is like a, it's like a toolkit, for different APIs like, calendar pickers and buttons and sliders and things like that. So, and then, you got things like this boot loopback, which I don't, I looked into this just the other day and I've already kind of forgotten what it was. But it says easy to develop RESTful APIs, so it's something about developing APIs, but I didn't have time to really get too much into it. I did like bookmark the website, and hopefully if I come back to this in a month or so, I might fill in some of these these blanks that I have here, and that's one of the reasons I'm making this video. And and actually I have this spreadsheet and some other things like, oh, and by the way, I was going to say too, I'm going to put an ad in here. I've got all kinds of shit in this Microsoft OneNote. It's really a good application. I haven't found any other type of note-taking types of apps that are anywhere near this refined. It's not perfect. Perfect would be something that's like CorelDRAW, where I can literally do anything I want anywhere I want, without it forcing you. In other words, being able to plop text anywhere, instead of being forced into a column or whatever, because they kind of do that and they kind of don't. I can plop text in other places, like over here, for example. It makes a separate little box thing, but you can move that around and overlay it on tops of other boxes that are already predefined, like this. So this is another box. What's cool about this is you can dynamically resize it, once you've got a box there, and you can see this didn't move. But yeah, I've kept lots of notes, and like I said, all this stuff. I've turned a lot of this into PDF because that's about the only way to store it. And how I did that is I actually had to print it, because it allows you to print your documents. But what you got to do is you got to go in and, like, let's say I wanted to make this page, save this page as a OneNote. You go in and go up here to print. Okay, and then I got my default set to where it's to Microsoft Print to PDF, and that's about the only fucking way you can actually save this information in OneNote, as a PDF. It's about the only way to back it up. But then you hit print, and it gives you the choice of where to save it, etc. And it at least makes a PDF where you can grab the text. But anyway, some of these PDFs got quite large. It's like over 300 megabytes worth of stuff in PDFs alone for all these pages. And I've got more to add now. But anyway, yeah, I've got all kinds of notes. These are extensive on Java, and I'm probably going to be putting these on my GitHub, when I do my website. 'Cause I'm thinking of publishing my little, my little website once I get it kind of refined on on GitHub, because they have free hosting. So, but yeah, like I said, I'm probably going to put this site on there, and this is what it's supposed to look like, by the way. But I'm going to have links to most of these, these PDFs and so forth. Is what I'm planning on doing anyway. So we'll we'll see, you know, what happens on that. But you know, doggone it. Yeah, this is still Office 2000, by the way. I still use this because I actually own it, and and it still works better than Apache OpenOffice, which is my second favorite. You know, and of course it's still leaps and bounds above Google and everything else. And it's actually based on Visual Basic too, the kind I know and love, which is VB5 and 6. So actually I know how to program it right out of the bat, you know, if I want to make, you know, macros, you know, fancy macros. So, you know, that's what I basically learned recently. So I thought that was pretty cool. But at any rate, but on OneNote, like I said, it's really a cool program. I mean, I'm a little weary because it's Microsoft, and you know, who knows what they'll do. But you know, but it's really, out of all the programs like this I've seen, it's the most refined. It is. It's the most versatile, and it allows you to do, you know, basically create these folders, and you got these sub pages here, you know, and you just go kind of close this up, and you know, you copy text or put pictures. You know, you can actually record audio too. It doesn't allow you to record video straight up, so you can't really put video in here or embed it like I would like to see. But you know, beyond that, you know, you can actually put audio files in it, and you know, put pictures in it, draw in it. So you know, it's got these different markers, and it's like I said, you know, it comes in you know, pretty handy for doing various things, you know, especially, you know, like clipping, you know, copying and pasting from websites. And it does have an OCR capability in it too, by the way. So if you actually have like a, you know, a JPEG or something that has writing in it, it does have an OCR function. I forgot how it works, but it's something you have to right click on, and then, you know, there is something that alt text, I don't remember how it worked. It's something that's actually how I discovered OneNote, is actually looking for OCR software, and this will do it, you know, and it's free too, even though they do have a paid version with their rent an office. Rent an office, I guess, is what you would call it these days, since I guess you can't buy it anymore. I don't know. Make a whole hour-long video about how much I hate those people trying to rent their software, like Adobe and Autodesk and all those assholes. But at any rate, you know, this is a good little program. I mean, it's actually surprisingly good quality, you know, and there's just nothing else I found that's quite as good. So, you know, for just general note taking, because again, you can embed audio files and actual files too. It'll actually store, you know, files separately if you want to just have a reference. But again, it's not perfect, but you know, it's still quite decent, you know, with all things considered. You know, you draw different shapes and everything, and so anyway, but it's not bad for a Microsoft product, you know what I mean? But certainly better than, you know, equivalents from other people. It's one of the few things that Microsoft did a little bit right, which means they're going to screw it up in, you know, 2 or 3 generations from now. At any rate, back to the you know, mode at hand. I just wanted to, you know, plug that though, because that's actually really a useful little tool I've discovered. You know, like this brackets thing, and how it can, you know, you got a live editor with it. That's why I like it. You know, because like I said, you can, you know, make changes to the HTML and actually have it show up dynamically over there. But at any rate, you got to get back to the thing at hand. Okay, so yeah, this is for mobile development. The list I'm building, but let's see, KeystoneJS. I don't know what this is really either. It's another one of those things I bookmarked to look at for later, but it says technically it's a CMS, which means content management service or whatever, which is like WordPress. So, you know, that's what WordPress is. But supposedly this is like, but I know I have not looked into it yet. I've looked at the web page or whatever, it looked intriguing, that's why I wrote it down, but I have not looked into this yet. But again, I get the impression that it's similar to WordPress. Then we go over here to things. Now sales, again, and in fact all these are actually alternatives to Angular, I believe, because I actually found these on a website when I was looking for, which was kind of an interesting little place. I'm going to see if I can find that really quick so you can go check it out. Hold on. Yeah, here it is. It's man, so many bookmarks. That's why I actually use Firefox, is because of this menu system they have, because it was similar to how Microsoft Internet Explorer worked, because like I said, I always had my stuff organized, but then became a Chrome user because this is deprecated, and of course Edge doesn't do that very well, and it's just kind of generally weird. So I don't like Edge, even though I occasionally use it for a few things, but but Chrome sucks. I mean, again, I've gone out there and tried to get plugins for Chrome and stuff that kind of do the same thing, but not really. I've not found anything that actually works this way, because I want something that's up all the goddamn time, so I can just click on something or have a folder open, which is how I work. But having something that just pops out at you or is off to the side here, I found some halfway creditable plugins, but again, they're still unreliable, basically. And and of course Chrome itself, you want to bookmark something, well, you go through this bullshit. And okay, you can choose a couple of recent websites, but otherwise you gotta go through this fucking crazy shit and try to. It just makes it such a pain in the ass to organize your shit. You just surrender to it, and you just end up with a bunch of junk building up in the same damn folder all the time. But that's why I started using this, and plus since it's championed on most of the versions of Linux that I have, it's like installed by default. So yeah, it's like, why not, So I'm much more transitioned over to it. But I still do a lot in Chrome because some stuff didn't work over here, in Mozilla. So, but yeah, anyway, this place is this Alexsoft, which actually talks a lot about like Angular and some of these things. That's how I found this. Is I was trying to understand what Angular was, and this actually led me down a rabbit hole, into React and all these different things like sales and media and so forth. There's some good articles on here. It's it's a pretty good little website, this Alexsoft is. So yeah, anyway, it's just one of the little jewels that I found that has filled in a lot of blanks, and it's again, it's not perfect, but I mean, it filled in a lot of blanks, and I got some really good articles here. It's like this is based on what is React, okay, trying to figure that out, but again, there are other articles too about Angular and alternatives to Angular, and because React is an arch competitor of Angular, but yeah, this is probably it actually. Angular versus Knockout versus Vue versus Backbone, and they don't talk about React because they talk about that in that other article that I saw, or that I showed you. But this talks about a bunch of different frameworks that compete with Angular, so which was interesting. Again, it's got a plethora of pretty good little information on here. So and it gives you this, which here, let me scroll wheel to zoom out here. I never even knew about that control plus mouse wheel, if that helps zoom in and out on things. It works on an awful lot of documents. I never knew about it so until recently. But anyway, yeah, it's like I said, here's Angular here, and it says, gentle learning curve, and you can expect the learning curve to be harder that way, but it's also two-way binding. Rich UI versus high performance. So here's Vue, Knockout, Angular. But of course there are more out there than just these. But at any rate, that Alexsoft is pretty useful little resource. Let's see, jQuery Mobile, I got that down there, and jQuery UI, React.js, AngularJS, Knockout, which is, well, this is boot, what is this? Backbone, that's what that is. So, which I don't have that here, but I actually hadn't looked into it. But at any rate, sales, was actually pretty interesting because, again, it's like an easier to use version, as compared to React and all this other stuff in Angular. So it does a lot for you, It's like that website I showed you, so, it gives you a starting place so you can at least see a functional website based on this. Like I said, I pulled my hair out just trying to find a functional Node.js or a functional, Angular site that I could download and toy with. I mean, it's just, you find them, but they're out there, and of course you put them in and they don't work, and you don't know why because you're trying to learn about it, so what the hell are you going to do? They got some certainly out there on GitHub or whatever, but trying to integrate them into a database when they don't even give you a damn database, I mean, it makes you pull your hair out. So I mean, like I said, that's why I only made it so far with Angular and Node.js, because that's going to be a project coming back to that crap. So again, at some point here in a few months or whatever, maybe I'll come back to it. But the important thing was Node.js, and JavaScript and so forth. But yeah, sales was interesting. KOA, I hadn't looked into it, but I actually have looked into this, and it was only 550 lines of code. You go download the thing, it actually downloads it just shows up as text file, which you got to actually manually save. So, but yeah, this is a library with only 550 lines of code. I forgot what it did though. Obviously, I didn't write it down, but I know it was a small library, and I mean, I know it toyed with it just a little bit. It seems like it was a user interface kind of thing, but I know you don't even have to download it. It's one of those things that's on the CDN, the Content Delivery Network or whatever. But at any rate, sales, again, was talked about in this article. That's how I discovered it. Meteor was talked about in one of these articles in here. Express, like I said, is just part of the mean stack, and it's kind of a helper set of functions, and I still don't know the breadth of this at all. I know there's a lot of things like Pug, for example, its generator system in general, which can, I don't know, do things like it's like a shorthand of writing a website. So it's like a shorthand for HTML. That's what Pug is. So you can just, instead of having to do the tags, like you see here, like a paragraph tag, if you don't know much about HTML, I mean, it's all about tags, and almost all of it, you got to have an opening tag and a closing tag. So the closing tag has a slash in it. And this B means bold, okay, and this is pretty easy to learn. It's surprising because I always thought this was gibberish, but I actually spent a few days on it. You really start to pick it up, So again, I always thought people were insane for talking about using a text editor for a visual website. Oh, that's stupid. But it's actually not that bad. But I still say it does make more sense to do it visually, like in a drawing package. And then have this stuff be generated automatically for the most part, but you need to know how to program in it, because you got to know how to modify it and how to make things work together, because that's where it gets tricky. It's getting different elements. So you might go copy like a series of buttons from one place, and then a picture viewing object or something from another. But if you're not careful, it'll interfere, depending on how they did it, with your general web page. So it might screw your text up and stuff. If you don't know HTML, you got a problem, and that's why you need to learn HTML, is because of the fact that you know how to correct the problems. It's a matter of being able to glue things together, if nothing else. Even though I'd highly recommend, if you're going to create a website, to start with something again like Serif's little little thing where you can just kind of draw a website, or the this thing, or because there's other little visual, GUI-based designers out there, which make it a lot easier, if you're a graphic designer, which I have a big propensity for graphic design tasks and drawing things. Damn it! Stupid gnats. You land on the computer monitor and you got like half a second to swat them with a damn fly swatter. Otherwise they're gone. You won't see them. They're almost impossible to see. They'll blend in with the background. But at any rate, that's how HTML works. But anyway, the things like Pug, are shorthand, so you can write like P and then put your paragraph text, and then put a div in there, and you just have to write the word div or something on the side, and it'll go in and interpret it and turn it into proper HTML for you. So it's like a shorthand way of writing HTML if you want to do that. So although if you just have a good editor, it's not that big of a deal to actually work in HTML. Like this one, I mean, you form a tag like A, for example, and well, shit, and then you close that, and it automatically creates the closing tag for you, as the case may be. So, and an A, that's where your hyperlink comes from, by the way, in HTML. That anytime you see that A, that usually implies there's a hyperlink. So that A tag. But there are lots of different tags, but you can get little cheat sheets out there. But of course, all these idiots try to charge for them, typically, which really is the summit of hubris. These people actually think their stuff is, they make money for it, for their cheat sheets. It's just hard to believe, the audacity. But here's an example of a cheat sheet for the HTML graphics methods, for example. So you can control mouse scroll wheel, zoom in and out, as the case may be. But it's a little cheat sheet. Again, a lot of these idiots try to charge for what they do, and that really is so insulting. Because you think about all the people that put all this open source code out, and how much time they spent putting open source programs out there available for free, and yet these people come and have the audacity to throw a little bit of graphics in it and think they can actually charge for their stuff or whatever. I mean, that's just such bullshit, dude. It's just a fucking sheet. Probably took you an hour to draw this up. I mean, it's just the audacity of people thinking, they're so exalted, in what they do, when in fact it really isn't much work, and it's just a pain in everybody's ass. Because you go out and Google something, you see a ton of cheat sheets show up, like HTML cheat sheet. You'll see a ton of these things out there. Trying to figure out what this is I was looking at here. If it was important or not, but you go to images, okay, and it'll show you all these cheat sheets, but of course they're all low resolution, so you're going to have a hard time getting a good, not grainy copy. And you go to their websites or whatever, they're trying to sell you something in one way, shape, or form. Sometimes they're just trying to get your information out of you, but I mean, it's just such bullshit. This is just graphics. I mean, about anybody could do one of these days who wanted to take the time to do it, because I mean, graphic software is not hard to use, it just rubs me the wrong way, given everything that everybody else is giving away for free, because this relates to it, you know what I mean? And and to go make money out of it. I mean, on one hand, I want to say the more power to them, especially in this day and age. You're lucky if you can make money out of it. But on the other hand, man, it's a fucking cheat sheet. Stop being such a pain in the ass, I mean, seriously, it makes you want to go, make your own cheat sheets and put them out there for free. But anyway, I just wanted to get off my box on that, but get that off my chest. But there are cheat sheets out there, so you can get cheat sheets on tags and stuff. And again, a lot of them have a good enough resolution to be usable anyway, but yeah, you're going to have to dig around. So, but too, in learning all this stuff, you're going to be pulling your hair out a lot because, again, there's so much information out there. You do a web search on anything, but the fact of the matter is that almost none of it's up to date, and it's hard to find up to date information because fucking Google does not allow you to search by date or sort by date, really. So even though you might be able to kind of do it, the fact of the matter is most of these sites there's no data information about out there. But even though Google, I guarantee you, knows when these guys first popped up on their database search engines, so they could actually sort this information by date if they wanted to, and allow you to do searches for recent information. And that way, at least you're not going through a bunch of like stuff from 2014, which usually isn't relevant anymore. But anyway, that's I think somebody needs to make an Angie's List basically for information on the internet. And I think something like this was tried before, but it needs to be done again, so that you can curate it. People can actually rate all the information out of the internet, if possible. And anyway, I'm going to get off that, but the fact of the matter is that's just something that bugs the shit out of me, how much time I wasted trying to figure some of this crap out. But Node.js, we talked about that. NPM is the Node.js download engine, which is pretty interesting thing. It's the Node content manager. It's the Node package manager, so it's kind of like apt-get or whatever, but it's for Node, and it's got a lot of stuff on it. In fact, that's one of the better ways of actually installing or upgrading Node.js anyway to a more recent version. So you might apt-get Node.js or whatever, give you a really old version of it, but you can kind of upgrade it by upgrading npm, and you'll have to restart your little CLI when you do that, otherwise it'll look like it's still the old version. But anyway, you can update it to the latest version of Node.js that way. That's how I had to do it. But okay, then you got this knockout. Okay. Yeah, fucking damn stupid gnats. Actually, it's not a gnat. I don't know what it is. It's dead now. Okay. But yeah, Knockout. It's one of the competitors of Angular. I think we covered that before. That's what I was kind of looking for. See if I wrote that down. But it's available by Content CDN, Content Delivery Network. I'm not sure. I wish Angular was. I mean, it might be. I haven't looked into it, but I would think it is. jQuery Mobile, we already covered all that. And SQL, we mentioned that. Amazon Web Service. Selenium is you'll hear that mentioned every now and then. And by the way, I wanted to take you to this Java T point. The only reason I like it, despite their obnoxious ads, is the fact that if you go click on them, they have tutors on just about everything you can think of. Latest tutors, Angular 7, they got them on Science, React.js. Again, a lot of them aren't very good, but they at least give you an idea, some exposure to it. But it's really a good place to come if you just want to find some information out and actually see some examples of stuff. So a lot of times you can do that here, but Cloud, Internet of Things, and Selenium. This is how I kind of learned what Selenium is, because you can go and click on it, and one of the first pages it'll kind of tell you what it is. So so if nothing else, it's good for that, even though their ads are really obnoxious. But Selenium is actually a way of doing error checking or whatnot. Web framework for testing. So it's is what it is, but I haven't really looked into it because that's like enterprise stuff, for right now. Way over my pay grade at the moment. But yeah, you got all this different stuff, including interview questions if you're going to get a job and some of this stuff. And but you know, they got, you know, like I said, information on networking, I guess, and graphics, which is actually pretty. This was pretty thorough and pretty general, but also kind of old though in some ways. But you know, mathematics and, you know, C, C++, Python, you know, Java. In fact, I did a lot of my Java studies on here before I discovered other places. You know, C#, you know, Android, you know, popular tutorials. So, you know, Excel, Linux, Perl, Docker, which is interesting. I didn't know they had Docker. You know, Docker is a little thing supposedly about microservices. It's free. Again, don't know much about it, but it's about microservices, and which are kind of modular websites, a way to modularize a website or something like that, so you can like replace part of it, you know, without it affecting other parts so much. And so it's just kind of a new way of thinking, I guess. But it's related to Kubernetes and or whatever they call it, and you know, concepts like that. But anyway, you know, they got Scala, Ruby, Rails, you know, Golang. You know, this GWT thing looks kind of interesting. I forgot what it is. I always meant to look at it, but I never actually got into it because this was in the early days when I was, you know, about a month ago. I was looking at that, but I never got around to looking at it. But at any rate, you know, they got Kotlin, Aptitude, you know, TypeScript, tk-enter, you know, which is, you know, if you're Python, want to do UIs, that's good. You know, Flask, which is a Python-based, you know, stack. So it's another stack available. You know, let's see, database tutors. So they got, you know, if you want to know what these different databases are, you know, Postgre and Couch and, you know, what was that other? Cassandra. That looks interesting. And Mongo and SQL Server and, you know, MySQL, etc. You know, you come here and, you know, at least get an overview of it. You know, you come here to web technology, jQuery, HTML, PHP, you know, JSON, XAML. So if you want to know what some of these are, JSON is just a file format that is replacing XAML basically. So, you know, XML is, you know, a much more verbose way of doing what JSON does, so it's actually replacing that. You know, Ajax, it'll tell you, you know, what the basics of Ajax are, which Ajax basically just centers down to one function. It's what it is. You know, that's what Ajax kind of is it's a communications object to allow, you know, dynamic website alterations. So it's kind of what some of this other stuff is all about, you know, Angular and stuff. But anyway, it's a more fundamental concept, but it's really built on, you know, one little function. So that's kind of what it is, and, you know, you can kind of get an overview of it, and again, the basics of how it works here on some of these sites. Again, I just briefly looked at it. I didn't. I was just curious to know what Ajax was, because I always hear about Ajax, and I know they're not talking about sink cleaners. But yeah, you know, web servers and, you know, Bootstrap and Angular, you know, Node, Express.js, so, you know, you can kind of see at least some of what's going on and what this stuff looks like. You know, WordPress, so they got, you know, tutors on that, and again, some of these tutors are quite extensive, especially when it comes to Java. I mean, they're very extensive tutors. It took forever to go through them. But again, it's still not the best quality tutors in the world. Some of these other sites, especially when it comes to web technology like Mozilla, are a lot better, you know, a lot better tutors, a lot clearer, you know, because these guys are like, you know, from India. So I mean, I don't know, and not just from India, but they're in a hurry. I mean, you know, it's like they're not covering it quite clearly enough sometimes, and it's almost like, you know, some of this is just kind of thrown together, you know. But at any rate, you know, it's still a useful site despite that. But at any rate, it covers a lot of Java-based technology, because again, that's why they call it Java T point. You know, so I mean, like I said, you can still pick up a lot of stuff from Java about Java from here. So, including some stuff I still don't know what it is, but you know, they got things on IntelliJ, and I know they've got on like NetBeans and Eclipse and some things like that too. You got like this stuff here. I guess topics like J and F and whatever, F sharp. But anyway, it was pretty. That's what is so nice about this, is that they do have a lot of different topics they cover. Because they even got some on artificial intelligence and stuff like that I was looking for, but I probably passed over it. But but it's kind of interesting, some of the stuff they have on here. So, it's worth at least checking out, even though, like I said again, the ads are friggin' obnoxious as hell. But at any rate, so Selenium, like I said, is a web testing framework, basically. PHP, damn it. Okay, but like I said, Angular, Node, JSON being a file type, Bootstrap. We've covered all this down below. PHP, HTML, and CSS. CSS is strictly about styles, really. So it's cascading style sheets is what it stands for. It's pretty simple, but pretty impressive what all it can do, and how it works. It works with tags. But like I said, you can work with classes, for example. Class equals BS example. So you can take any of these objects and assign a class to it, or you can assign an ID to it. But an ID will refer specifically to that specific tag, whereas a class, you can actually have classes assigned to several different types of objects. So again, that's a good way of assigning style sheets to it, because you can reference those with CSS. So I don't know if there's any style. Well, here's a style sheet. So this is looking for okay, well, it's just telling what the type is, but .bs, that's a class definition, so there's a class in there that's just standalone class, for BS dash example, and it'll apply this style to it, which is a margin setting. But there's lots of different styles, and you can Mickey with some of them, like in Google, or Google actually had kind of a cool, where'd it go? Oh, it had kind of a cool little thing. If you press, let's see, what was it? Control-Shift-C, I think it is. I see it's annoying because on most Linux installations you got to press Control-Shift-C to actually copy and Control-Shift-V to paste. I managed to fix that. It took a hell of a lot of effort, but I managed to fix it so it works more like Windows and like the rest of Linux does. But in any event, you can go to the the inspector or whatever is what it pulls up, and some of these things you can actually play with, because it does. I think part of the reason is my thing's compressed here, but I haven't toyed around with it too much. But you get the console sources, but I know you can go and screw with some CSS stuff on here, which is actually kind of cool. HTML, okay, event listeners, accessibility properties, styles, style. Now that's what we're dealing with, style here. But I know I've managed to actually go and like assign some text with shadows and stuff. That's all done in CSS. But anyway, that's basically how it works, though. With the CSS and classes and tags and stuff, and that's a concept that once you get it, is actually pretty clear cut. It allows you to really operate not just with this, but also with JavaScript and some things like that. You can take advantage of these types of identifiers, but you can also just do it, like you can write a style sheet anywhere you want, and I guess this thing's not working properly. Normally it'll complete that. But you can write it anywhere you want, and just like put P in there, for example, for paragraph, and it'll apply that style to every paragraph in your document. But again, usually you don't want to do that if you want different styles to apply to different paragraphs. So I wouldn't want every one of these to be, like bold blue, italics font or whatever, so that's why you have the classes and the IDs and stuff, so you can sort some of these out and divisions. But anyway, that's HTML. It's front end stuff. I don't know how to get out of this. Oh yeah, you just X out of it. Okay, but yeah. But anyway, that's CSS for you. It's cascading style sheets. It's all about the style. So, Python, is not related to this, but we can discuss it because it's here real quick. Because you'll hear about Python if you don't know anything about it, and that's actually a scripting language, but it's a very, very powerful scripting language. It's a lot of stuff written in Python out there, and it's a good language to get to know because you can do a lot of, internet and networking related stuff, and just a lot of computer management kind of stuff. So it's a good scripting language to have on your system, be it Windows or Linux or what have you. But it also has Django and Flask and some other things on top of it, which are web frameworks that use Python. But Python itself is an independent language, so you got to install it independently. But there's not a bad chance it could already be installed on your computer. But it gets a little crazy because it's still, if you're working in the CLI, the command line interface a lot, it's all based on paths. So, and you're going to have, especially on Windows, some real headaches getting your paths to work right sometimes. Use the set, with environment variable, not. Anyway, that's my path object. So, and that's like part of it, but I mean, it gets complicated, so you need to set your paths up in the GUI version of it, so which is in, well, you can find a lot of articles on it about the internet on how to adjust your path in the, in the GUI in the system area where you hit, like configure system variables or whatever. So that's the only more or less reliable way I found of editing the path variable, because they grow so big, it's hard to append them. They keep giving you errors and shit. But at any rate, but yeah, if you do that, you're going to have a hard time, especially if you get more than one version of Python on your system. Then it'll start to be a real nightmare. So that's why Python relies a lot on virtual machines, because you can actually have a virtual setup, and it's not like a virtual machine like, the one from Oracle's VM box or whatever it was, or some of these others that you have out there, which are actually true, virtual machines that are like a separate computer which you can install operating systems on and stuff. But this is like just a separate, it's a way of keeping versions of Python separate from each other, so they don't step on each other's toes. So that's, I still not really used it that much, but I mean that's a way of getting around some of the problems if you need more than one version of Python. But anyway, Python's a simple language. In fact, I'm about to get back into this in Ruby because I just covered it superficially in the past. Although I have written some Python programs, which are moderately sophisticated, but I still, I've got to come back to it. Now Ruby is another scripting language as well, and it's actually a lot less restrictive. It's a much simpler language in many ways, but still powerful, and it's what Ruby on Rails was based on. But it's not as quite as strict as Python is, and Python's not really that strict of a language, not like C++ or Java or anything. But Ruby is one of the most flexible languages I've seen, so again, I'm about to get back into that too later tonight, I think. Java, of course, I've got, I spent a Java. So it's pretty multifaceted, and you get things like Hibernate, which is a way of apparently of mapping Java classes to database tables, which I haven't really screwed with it, but that's what it is. And then servlets, which have something to do with dynamic web pages. Again, it's a competitive technology to the various stacks. Then JSP, involving servlets too, and then C++. If you don't know what that is, like a very powerful programming language that a lot of things are ultimately written in. So at one point or another, you're going to run into C++ being involved. C# is like a more modernized version from Microsoft. They try to modernize the C++ language, and it's pretty powerful. What it does and how it works. It's pretty refined. I mean, it's meant to be an arch competitor to Java, is what it is. And by all accounts, they actually did a good job, but it's still Microsoft. So you're still kind of stuck with the .NET thing and all that baggage. So I don't know. It's better to I think to be more than just beholden to Microsoft these days, to Windows, especially given just how badly they kind of screwed Windows 10 up. I mean, I really don't care for it that much. It makes Linux look that much more appealing, but in any event, it's still pretty nice. I mean, the Visual Studio is a pretty nice little development environment. And that's not to be confused with Visual Studio Code, which is just a text editor. It's kind of same thing as brackets, but for programming, and this is for programming too, just a different kind. It's centered on web pages, whereas this is for about any kind of language you can think of: PHP, Ruby, Python, and it allows you to not just on a lot of these, not just write the language like a text editor, like a Notepad. Notepad++, for example, or Fred, or whatever, or actual just plain old text editors, but for with a programming bent to them, or Genie rather, is another example of that, but it's just a text editor. Whereas this is a little more than that, because you can actually, with plugins and so forth, actually debug programs in it a lot of times. Like Java and Ruby and Ruby and Python. You can actually not only run it with this code runner here, but extension, but you can actually debug it as well by setting breakpoints and using the debugger. So it's pretty nice, even though again it's not perfect, especially if you want to change like options specifically. It is a pain in the motherfucking ass, because the only way you can do it is like through JSON files and stuff like that. They don't have like a nice little settings editor like every other rational GUI kind of thing out there used in programming, like NetBeans or whatever. You can actually go just set the colors of, like, let's say I wanted this red instead of blue. Well, doing that is a motherfucking pain in the ass. I mean, you're going to have to find what style sheet you have and everything else, and I mean, it sucks. I mean, it's bullshit, and and this kind of is like that too, but not quite as bad as this. But it's just bullshit that people are so lazy they won't take the fucking time to actually, at least put an interface in it which would cover most of the damn shit. Because I don't care what you say, it's going to be a hell of a lot faster, okay, to go into a goddamn GUI system and change your text color than it is to go out and try to hunt for whatever fucking file you need to hunt for, and try to hunt for wherever it is the line might be for the language you happen to be using, and trying to figure out, okay, does this pertain to this or not? I mean, it's just a pain in the ass. It's the most ridiculous fucking thing. But in any event, so anyway, that pisses me off. But other than that, it's okay. But I still say, Genie or something like that is a better. Genie is a better text editor probably, but jury's still out on that. But but you can set this up to run with Java and stuff. And my other i3, I actually do run a lot. Did a lot of Java development in this. just to see if you could do it, and in fact you can. You can do Java with command line. You don't need something complicated like NetBeans, which it creates. Have you ever seen a NetBeans project file? You're like, what the hell is all this shit? I mean, there'll be like dozens of files in there, and you're just writing a simple hello world program. You're like, what the hell? It gets confusing. But it's not necessary, and that's what I proved. That Java application can be as little as one file, really. But in any event, I digress. But the Kotlin is something I've yet to look into, and that's an alternative to Java. So, and that's by Google. Had a lot to do with it, I think, and at least supporting it. And I forgot who. Yeah, I think it was the JetBrains or whatever. The guys that did the Java editor for. I keep forgetting what it's called. But let me look it up. JetBrains. Okay. Languages, like tools. Yeah, IntelliJ. Duh. That's what I was trying to think. Yeah, they do IntelliJ, and but they don't give their tools away for free. There are some that are community based, but other than that, I don't see why the hell people would want to use that as opposed to NetBeans, because NetBeans, you at least have a damn GUI builder in it, as part of it. But you don't really get that with JetBrains, and they charge you for it. I can't get over that. I'm like, why am I paying for something that I can get on Microsoft for free, or or Eclipse, or NetBeans, or what have you? Because NetBeans is actually really good. I actually like it quite a bit. It's got some really neat little tricks to it. But at any rate, Haskell is a different programming language. But Kotlin is kind of similar to Scala and another language, I forgot what it is. But it actually is kind of intriguing. It's a lot simpler than Java from what I've seen, but it does use the same libraries, and really the complexity of Java, a lot of it comes from the damn libraries, because there are so many of them. It's so extensive. You'll be overwhelmed as hell in Java, if you use the dot operator on practically any object and see how many choices there actually are. How many parameters, how many properties and methods you got available. It's just, it blows your mind. And that's just the standard libraries, not the extensions. So, yeah, but anyway, it's pretty mind-blowing. But, Kotlin was an alternative to that, but again, it's mostly championed by Google because it's become the official language of Android now, apparently. But again, it still does run on Java 2, the version of Java. But Kotlin is still an easier language that's on top of it, apparently. I haven't looked into it yet. It's on my to-do list, but we'll see. Again, Haskell is kind of a language, I believe it's mostly an industrial scientific version of Scala, I think. It seems like it was something like that. Again, I'm trying to remember. I could be completely wrong about that, but I don't really know much about it. I screwed around with it a little bit, and but I think it's concurrency is part of it. That's how I found it. It's found at the same time I found Go, which is about concurrency. So and Go is becoming a more popular language apparently for doing, I don't know, like web stuff and anything that has to run multiple threads or whatever. Perl, okay, is a very old language, from the late 80s, and but it's really got some powerful text manipulation capabilities in it, and it's where regular expressions came from, apparently. So they innovated that first in that language. But I'm not sure how relevant Perl itself really is today. I know some people still use it, but I mean, again, everything has gone to either Ruby or Python or C# or Java, or it's the case maybe C++ or what have you. That's kind of an old language. Even for running servers. PHP. JavaScript. Those are the modern languages these days. But beyond that, we've kind of come full circle. I think that kind of covers everything. So, up to date, I'm sure I left a ton of stuff out, but as far as web technologies is concerned, that's it. Web technologies plus anyway, since I did talk about some regular languages. So anyway, that ought to help me refresh my memory if nothing else.